We've got even more, Vince. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, baby. We got some good ones to talk about here.
Okay, here we go. So, speaking of like early July, I just say I'm very happy that EA Sports chose this first couple days of the month to put out all this information that they did with all these player rankings and stuff like that, because it's like perfect timing for some content
Yeah, baby.
for us. So, EA Sports has released its rankings of the top 100 players for the college football 26 game. Jeremiyah Love comes in at number 4 overall. Leonard Moore, number 38. Aamil Wagner at number 60. And wide receiver Malachi Fields, of course, the transfer from Virginia, at number 89. So, any surprises? Any snubs for Notre Dame on this list?
I would say I'm a little surprised that Aamil Wagner is getting the kind of love that he is, but at the same time, he played every single game last year on a team that went to the national championship, and a lot of people out there don't know how to evaluate offensive linemen, and so they go with the guys that have been the steadiest and are coming back, and he was very steady. Remember going into this time last year, we were like, I don't know, Aamil Wagner can't put on weight, and like all these different things about Aamil Wagner. He ends up being like, we were worried about him being the weak link of the offensive line going into last year. And then he ends up being the most reliable,
most consistent. Yeah.
And so I don't have a problem with him being there. I think there's guys on the offensive line of Notre Dame that are more talented than Aamil Wagner, but they haven't been there for a whole season. So it's like I'm fighting with myself as to whether or not to be like critical of that or like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? So that would be the first thing that popped into my head. Other than that, I guess, I feel like Christian Gray belongs on that list. We're talking about top 100 across the country. He's the first one that came to mind of somebody who might have been snubbed. I think there's some guys that could work their way onto that list, based on what I think they're going to do this year. But, they got 4 guys in the top 100. Like, I'm curious, did they do a breakdown by school? Like, which schools had the most by chance?
I did not see anything like that. I just saw a straight list of who the 100 were. So,
fair enough. Yeah. But 4 is not bad. I mean, they got 4 guys in the top 100. That's not bad.
I mean, when I looked at this list and I saw Aamil Wagner at number 60, that definitely was like, I would call that the biggest pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
That Wagner ended up all the way up at, because it's like he's not even, like Malachi. Honestly, if I knew that Wagner and Fields were both going to be on the list based on a lot of the hype that Fields has got from, sort of nationally coming in here to Notre Dame, because he does have, more experience. He's got a little bit of a track record in a different offense and all that kind of stuff. I would have thought that maybe Wagner would have been 89 and Fields up there at number 60. So I would definitely say Wagner, biggest pleasant surprise. Again, I thought maybe Fields would be a little bit higher, but based on the hype that he's had, still obviously warranted to be on the list. And, like in terms of the snubs, I don't think, like someone, I think Joe said Charles Jagasaw. And I mean, from a pure talent standpoint,
yes,
he definitely could be on this list, but he only played in 2.5 games last year. Like, and that's
like 1.5 games the year before or whatever it ended up being.
Exactly.
Like, he doesn't have enough under his belt.
Right. And again, this is an EA Sports rating. So they're literally going off, everything they know about this guy from a pure playing standpoint. There are probably a million other offensive linemen who also played in 2 or 3 games last year, and they might be really good as well, but they just haven't played enough, So I think like Jagasaw, if he plays to what we think that he can play and he sticks around for another year, that'll be the biggest question for him.
Sure.
He would be on this kind of list next year for sure.
And look, I actually agree with this. God's Nuclear ICBM says Notre Dame should have 12 top 100 players if Aamil made the cut. And I love Aamil, but Jags, Shrouth, Craig are all better. I don't disagree with you that they have more talent. I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. The problem is, if you add up every start that those other guys have, I don't think it equals what Aamil Wagner has. And that's what people are going to look at right now.
Yeah, because like Shrouth wasn't a starter, wasn't a starter all season. Craig was obviously only played in 3 games last year, and again, this is a video game ranking, so
This is
it's
true.
not like we're getting too worked up about it. But at that's why it's a video game putting
Right.
together skill sets for these guys based on how they performed last year. It's really cool that Notre Dame has a guy like Jeremiyah Love that's ranked as high as he is, all the way up at number 4 and the number 1 running back in the country, and then Leonard Moore, for that matter, at number 38. And the fact that they've got 4 top 100 guys, even though it's a video game ranking, it does speak to where the program is going, because they break it all down by, I think it's like 5 or 6 different, agility, speed, strength, all this different stuff, awareness, all these different things. So,
well, and they, you see how excited the pro guys get about, their mad rankings and ratings and all that stuff. So, I mean, this is the college version of that, right? And so these guys get excited about it. It means something to them. You know what I mean? And so it means something for sure.
Father David says Jelly would be top 50, but Vince convinced EA to lower him.
Wish I had that kind of power, man. I'd be calling up EA to talk about all kinds of stuff.
Salty, of course, thinks the great one is a snub. I think there's a case for Bowen. I wonder where he ended up being ranked in this thing. Great one again. If he had 4 more games like he had his last 2 games, there's probably a really good case for him to be in a ranking like this. But not quite there. Not quite there. Just a little bit more, and it's not all on him, obviously. The connection with the quarterback is a big thing. So EA has Love ranked as the number 1 running back and Moore as the number 3 corner in the country in their rankings. Those 2 guys were also named to the Walter Camp preseason All-American team yesterday. Which is the bigger deal, the EA Sports ranking or the preseason All-American honor?
Are you asking me or are you asking a 20-year-old? Because I think that might be a different answer. You know what I mean? But for me, the preseason All-American list is so much more important than anything a video game person would have to say about how good these guys are. Now, look, they're both very, very good, obviously. I think the preseason All-America love is legit, though, and they both deserve it. And I think that is an amazing honor. So I would go with the preseason All-American list.
See, I think it's the EA ranking.
Oh, look at you.
It's for this reason. Preseason All-American teams are like preseason polls. And I saw the Big 12 did away with its preseason, football poll this year. Because Arizona State was picked, second to last year. And look where they ended up. Preseason All-American teams mean nothing. Do they even publish those in your bio, at the end of the year? It is what you actually do during the season. If this was postseason All-American, actual season All-American versus preseason, it would be a lock. But no matter what's one of the things that's cool about these video games now coming out with the actual players being in there and the fact that they are using their name, image, and likeness is forever Jeremiyah Love for the 2026 EA Sports game is always going to be the number 1 ranked running back in the EA Sports 26. Leonard Moore is always going to be the 3rd ranked cornerback as a sophomore in this. Preseason All-American, I can do without it. It's the actual end of season All-American teams that matter. So for that reason, I think the EA ranking means more. And to your point as well about what the kids think of it to a 20-year-old or whatever, they might publicly say, "Oh, that's great, but I got to do it on the all those."
Oh no, it means something. If you're,
I think it means something to them though. There's a lot of
no doubt about it. Like I said, it's in the same ballpark as your Madden rating, and these guys are getting rated now, and that means something. There's no doubt about it. So it's huge for them. Are you kidding me? Oh no, it's massive.
Yep. Neither CJ Carr nor Kenny Minchey showed up in EA's top 20 quarterback rankings. Fair or foul?
It's fair for now. I mean, we don't know who the starter is going to be. And if EA goes out and says, one guy over the other, and then you're going to have all kinds of whatever. And you're better off just leaving them off the list. And I'm fine with that, to be perfectly honest. Because what if Kenny Minchey wins it over CJ Carr and everybody thinks CJ Carr is going to win it and they put him in the top 10 or top 20 and then he doesn't even win the job? That makes EA look stupid. So I would just leave them off completely and then let the chips fall where they may. And then one of them is going to be the returning quarterback for next year. They'll make the list. So
Absolutely
I'm
agree
okay with it.
Yeah, it's totally fair because again, like what we were talking about with Jagasaw and those kind of guys, like Carr and Minchie haven't played yet. So how are you going to be ranked in the top 20, among the quarterbacks when you haven't even played yet? So I'm
right.
Perfectly fine with it as well. Couple follow-ups. Good point from Toonsis. Every recruit in America will 100% see the EA
That's
list.
fair.
So like you're
No,
being
that's
recruited
fair.
it's like J Love and Leonard Moore are up there when you're playing those games. That's a good point.
This is the Joe, that makes a great point, but this is the whole alternate uniform conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where all the old people are, that's stupid, I don't want to see anything new, but then the recruits see it.
Yep,
they get excited. It's the same argument. So I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, Joe said it'd be great if the players got paid more from EA if they get those rankings. That's true. Like if you're ranked in the top 100, maybe they double up what you're,
because they're getting what, $300 or something.
I think they bumped it to 500 last year or something, if I remember right.
Yes and no would be my answer to that, because if you're in the top 100, you're making some sweet coin from your school already. And so if like you get double what EA Sports is giving you, now you make $1,000. I don't think that scratches the surface of what they're making already. So I just think there's nothing that EA Sports could give them that would put a dent in what they're already making if they're a top 100 player in the country. That's what I would say. Yeah. So I understand what he's saying, just from a perception standpoint and all of those kinds of things. And it's an honor and all that. I just don't think it would put a dent in what they're already making. And so I don't think it would even matter.
How high do you think Carr could end up being ranked by the end of the season?
Ooh. If he has the season we think he's capable of having with the weapons he has around him, I think he'd be in the top 10.
Yeah, I think he's a lock for top 20.
Oh, yeah, I agree with
that. I think there's, again, we haven't seen him play an actual real down, right, outside of some spring scrimmages. But I think he's a lock for top 20 and should be in the top 10.
I mean, if Notre Dame is who we think they're going to be, a top 5 football team this year, in that neighborhood, your quarterback should probably be in the top 10, right? I mean, I don't think that's not going crazy. That's not projection. If you've got a good football team, then your quarterback is probably pretty good. So, yeah, I don't think that's going too far out on a limb.
Nope, I completely agree. Joe is asking if Jeremiyah Love gets paid more for being on the cover. I don't think the cover, I don't think that does anything extra. It's just like you get a little bit more extra attention.
Yeah, I mean,
I think all the players get a flat rate.
Yeah, basically. They got a free trip out to wherever they took the picture, and got the hobnob and all.
Got to be part of
things. I'm sure they got paid something, but I don't know that it was. I mean, there's a lot of people on that cover, so I don't know what that ended up looking like. Again, it's not going to be life-changing money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not going to be the case.
Yeah, get a little, buy a few pizzas, that kind of thing. So here's the quarterback rankings that EA has. Klubnik is number 1, and then Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Sam Levitt, Lenora Sellers, John Mateer, Oklahoma, Carson Beck, Blake Horvath at number 8, Arch Manning, and then DJ Lagway. That's the top 10. What do you think of that?
I think CJ Carr has a great opportunity to be in the top 10.
I do too. That's what I'm saying. Like
when you put the names on the list,
yes,
I would even say he's got a decent chance to be top 5 based on that particular list. So, that's not a hard list to crack, in my personal opinion. So, yeah,
I don't think so either. Like, I'll be shocked if anyone considers Drew Aller a top 3 quarterback by the end of the season. Craig is not impressed either.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Mentally,
he's not wrong. Maybe he's going to prove us all wrong and just be a dude this year. Maybe
like a guy like Horvath. I mean, obviously, it's a different system. It's so hard to quantify, and
I know.
he is a better passer than most Navy quarterbacks.
Sure.
Didn't help him last year, but Arch Manning at number 9. I thought that was a little bit low, but I guess he's got a lot to prove this year.
He does. Well. He's still a first-year starter. So,
Okay. Iowa State. We're going to predict. I was trying to find the schedule and I accidentally typed stats instead of schedule. So, in our continuing series, we're going to predict Iowa State's Vegas over-under season win total. They are projected by CBS Sports to win the Big 12 and represent the conference in the college football playoff this season. So,
wow,
we're going to go through the old Iowa State schedule, and we're going to guess their over-under. They start off with Kansas State.
That's their first game of the season is a conference
out of the
game.
chute.
They are not messing around.
And those are two of the favorites to win the conference. I would say those two and Arizona State are probably the top 3 favorites right now.
You're a Coach Prime hater, apparently. Okay.
Then they've got South Dakota, and then Iowa, Arkansas State. They're at Arkansas State, actually.
That's interesting.
I know. Arizona, at Cincinnati, at Colorado, BYU, Arizona State, at TCU, Kansas, and at Oklahoma State. It's not a brutal schedule, but at the same time,
that's the Big 12, so
they play. Yeah, it's like they're playing pretty much all the contenders going into the season.
And and Iowa's no slouch. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, and it's in September, which is wild. And they're hosting it. They're getting a lot of love. You are absolutely correct about that. They are getting a lot of love this year as far as what they're going to be able to do. So I'm going to put it at 9.5. Even though I don't know that I necessarily believe it, I'm going to say 9.5 because of the love that I feel like they're getting.
I'm debating between 7.5 and 8.5 is where I am. I mean, they had a really good year last year. They ended up winning 11 games overall. Beat Miami in their bowl game. I'm looking to see how comparable last year's schedule is to this year. They played Arizona State in the conference championship game. They played Kansas State at the end of the season, which is interesting. They also played Iowa. Interesting, 2 years in a row. Nope, they did play Utah last year. Check that. I was about to say 2 years in a row they didn't play Utah. They don't play Utah this year, but they beat Utah. I'm going to go 8.5. I think it's going to be 8.5.
All right.
Iowa State.
Here we go.
So let's see. Let's find them. Vince has got 9.5. I've got 8.5 for Iowa State. I've been on a little bit of a roll lately. Will it continue?
I've been on a slump.
Here we go. Iowa State per FanDuel. 7.5.
Wow. How can you win the Big 12 being at 7.5?
Here's what's interesting, because I was looking at conference winner odds for the Big 12.
Okay.
Kansas State, Utah, and Arizona State are the 3 favorites according to FanDuel. All have plus 600 odds. Iowa State is 4, 5, 6, 7th according to Vegas with plus 1,000 odds. Just one spot ahead of Kansas, who has plus 1,600. So Vegas not nearly as high on Iowa State. Interesting.
Not even close.
Yeah.
They obviously don't think they're going to win the conference. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would take the over on 7.5.
Yeah.
But kind of kicking myself because I was going back and forth 7.5, 8.5. So, oh well. So 7.5 for
that's I would
State.
definitely take the over on that one too.
I think so. Joe wants to know if anyone's got $100 to win him. Father David says Utah's winning the conference. That's what I thought last year. Maybe they bounce back this year. So Netflix got into the NFL broadcasting business with their Christmas Day games last year. They're going to do it again this year. Now, last year, ESPN, Fox, and CBS all allowed their announcers to be part of the Netflix broadcast, whether it was the studio show or the games. Netflix basically mined out all the announcers from these other networks. This year, ESPN and Fox say, no. They're not going to let announcers like Laura Rutledge, Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt, and Greg Olson be part of the Netflix extravaganza on Christmas Day NFL this year. So what do you think about this hard line by the networks, Vince?
I think the networks are starting to feel a little bit of a competition. I think before they were like, okay, you guys go ahead and you can use our guys. That's totally fine. And then I think they saw the ratings, and I think they saw that, maybe we don't want to be helping them out as much as we are. Not that they're going to challenge them completely, but at the same time, I would guess that the networks are going to want to jump on this Christmas Day thing sooner than later because of what it could mean from a rating standpoint. And so they're not going to help out the competition anymore. They didn't see Netflix as a competition. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, last year it was more everyone, like getting along, and it's like, special deal and all that kind of stuff. I think Netflix wants to continue to make this an every year thing. And like last year was sort of their entry point into the NFL. And I think that they're going to come for an even bigger package at some point. And Fox and ESPN are like, if you think you're going to broadcast NFL games, you better be shelling out some money to pay your own people. We're not just going to loan out our people anymore and let you ultimately poach them if you're going to put together your own package of games down the road. Because there are some people who think that Netflix could even be, part of the Sunday afternoon type thing. So,
I mean, what are the two most commonly owned apps? And I'm doing this off the top of my head. I have nothing in front of me to even. It's got to be Prime and it's got to be Netflix. Those have got to be the two that most people have both of. Would you agree?
Netflix has got the biggest global streaming reach.
Global.
Right now.
Okay, global. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so again, like when you look at that, like the games going on in Europe, maybe Netflix like goes and it's like, well, okay, we'll take Christmas Day and we'll do all these games, like the overseas games, and like that'll be our package. You could easily see with all the European games, the overseas games that the NFL keeps adding, you could easily see that becoming a package.
Yep, that makes sense.
I wonder. I don't know, like obviously YouTube isn't independently broadcasting. But like your question about the apps and who's got like the most
you pay for.
Obviously. I think those three have got to be three of the top ones, though, right?
Right. Agreed. And so I mean, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Like I wouldn't have Prime Video if I didn't have Prime, shipping. You know what I mean? It's just a happy add-on, I guess.
No, that's the same because like we didn't even realize we had like Amazon until a few years. And then my wife was like, oh yeah, I've got and I was like, what? So we can actually, because we've got that, like we can watch all this stuff on our, like we can, we've got that as well. So, yep. Yeah. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Netflix strategy is going forward if they want to do this, because like Greg Olson would be like a perfect number one guy, like number one analyst after all the Tom Brady stuff. I think he's got, I don't know how much time he's got left on his contract, but if Netflix is going to be, knee deep in NFL going forward, it feels like Greg Olson would be the perfect number one analyst on that, since he's proven he can be a number one guy and he's not going to be able to do it at Fox right now. But they're going to have to hire some people, it sounds like, if they want to keep doing games. So, okay. Did you have one more?
No, we'll do it.
Oh, you'll do it? Yeah, that's right.
We'll
jump in there.
We're free. Let's go. Give us a call.
Sure. That's right. So, Vince, Glenn Powell said on the Pat McAfee show this week, there is definitely a Top Gun 3 in the works.
Ooh, boy.
He said when it happens is up to Tom Cruise, but they are, quote, definitely headed back for another trip to Miramar, end quote. Scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of excitement for a third Top Gun installment?
I'm torn on this because Maverick was so good that I feel like they should just leave it alone. But I'm going to go watch I'm going to go watch it. Like, I'm going to go watch it. So I'm excited about it because if they can match what they did with Maverick, then I'm on board. But they kind of hit all the notes in Maverick. Like,
I know.
Iceman's dead. Like there's certain things because they did a lot of harking back to the original, which you're not going to be able to do as much.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the tension, with Goose's kid in theory, unless they create something else. I don't know. I would watch it. Obviously, I'm going to watch it. So it's high. It's like an 8, 9, 10 in that neighborhood. I just don't know that it's necessary.
I'm in the 8 range, but I completely agree. And I think we've kind of talked about this before. What I'm worried about is they're going to screw it up, by trying to do too much. But at the same time, I'm excited because it's already been, 4 years since they finally released Top Gun Maverick?
Shut up. Has it been that long?
I believe it has.
Wow.
I believe it has, right? Does that sound right? Has it been 20? It was either 2021 or 2022. Maybe it was 22. But it's either been 3 or 4 years. But
22.
Okay, so 3 years, which is
that's still 3 years.
But there's been nothing in that time to me that compares to the excitement of what Top Gun Maverick was doing. Like, it set all kinds of records at the box office and all that, and it was a great movie. Watched it over and over again. Josh, obviously not a Top Gun fan. He gives it a 5. DJ, in the same boat.
Oh, DJ, come on, man.
But I've gone and seen the last 2 Mission Impossible movies simply because of the excitement from Maverick 3 years ago.
Wow.
Because again, I hadn't really seen, it had been kind of hit and miss with the Mission Impossibles, but in that time, I've watched them all to different levels of enthusiasm, I would say. But I'm more, they made Creed, and that was finally a fresh take on, the whole Rocky thing. Like, Rocky had finally looked like it had run its course. And then they come out with Creed, and now they've made 3 Creeds.
Oh my gosh.
And the first one was definitely the best of the 3. They made 3 Hangover movies. The first one was definitely the best of the Hangover movies. And the third one was just awful. And it's that's what I'm worried about is they've got to get the story right. And there's only so many places, like you said, that they can go with the story at this point because they hit so many of those sentimental notes in the first one, and it's
exactly.
You can only go back to the well so many times.
Yeah. I mean, that's what made it so good is that they were able, they went back to the Penny thing. They went back to Goose's son. They went back to Iceman, all of these different throwbacks to the original movie, which made Maverick work. And so I don't know. I just don't know what's I'm not a writer, obviously. So, that's not it's not my thing. But I just don't want them to ruin it, man. It was so freaking good.
I know.
I know. I'm nervous about it, Sean.
That's what scares me. Mark says Top Gun SpaceX. Do you want to see him go to space? I mean, it would be something different.
He was almost in space.
He was almost in space at the top. Yeah, or at the beginning of the second one. Yep. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer, for sure.
Sure. Like I said, can you have a Top Gun without Iceman? Can you?
Well, I mean, you've got, how much do you play up? Because with Glenn Powell being in there, how much do you play up? Him as sort of like the young Iceman character, and where does Tom Cruise even come into play? Does he hopefully he doesn't segue out of it because I think he's still got to be a central figure. But it's
absolutely.
It's him, Rooster, and Hangman. Those are the 3 main characters at this point. Man, and you don't want to see him, leave Penny out, hanging out to dry again. After
that would be awful.
Thing. So
that would ruin it. That would ruin the movie. And the death of Iceman was a bit of a tearjerker, and mean, you just had all these different aspects that you can't go back to. That's what makes me nervous.
Toons just said he was confused in the first one. Who was the bartender supposed to be? Penny was, if you watch the original Top Gun, there, like early in Top Gun, there was a reference to joyriding with the Admiral's daughter.
Yep.
Penny, even though you never saw her in the original Top Gun, was the Admiral's daughter who went for the joyride with Maverick. And then, based on the story in Maverick, it was kind of an on again, off again sort of thing over the years between those two. So that's who Penny was.
Which makes zero sense when you compare Penny to the love interest in Top Gun. What were you thinking, Tom? Makes no
Not
sense.
Even close. Not even
It
close.
makes no sense to me. You've got one versus the other. How did you make that choice? I got nothing. Like that makes, so I always had an issue with the love interest in Top Gun in the first place.
Kelly McGillis.
Yes. I always had an issue with that in the first place. And then fast forward to Maverick, where now I know like the personality and how Penny looks. What were you thinking, dude? Like, you're clearly not worried about it being the Admiral's daughter, so that wasn't going to stop you.
Right.
So, like, that, I big problem now. Like, that makes it even worse for me. Makes it even worse when Penny is sitting right there in the wings. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like, like at that time, like the 80s, where, like a little bit different actress might have made a difference. A lot of people like Kelly McGillis back then. Like,
I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Never
Yeah.
have.
I thought she was an odd choice looking back on it now. Joseph, football question before we roll out of here, wants to know if Cam Williams is going to see the field this season. I mean, I think he'll see the field. I don't know to what extent. I think that he'll at least be part of the rotation. I don't know how high on the rotation because of some of these other guys. Because between Greathouse, Faison, Malachi Fields, Will Pauling. I mean, that's
your top four.
Those
guaranteed.
are four locks right there.
Yes. It honestly depends on Cam Williams because he's going to be competing with Micah Gilbert. He's going to be competing with KK Smith. He's going to be, competing with all of these other guys for that 5th and 6th spot, depending on how deep they go. And only he is going to dictate how much he sees the field. And so it's really kind of up to Cam Williams. And this is going to be a very important year for him, even though I think he's only going to be a junior. This is an important year for him because there's going to be plenty of talent to pass him up.
Yep.
So he's going to have to make some noise this year.
I agree. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate everybody as always. A lot of really good questions. We went deep in the mailbag tonight.
I love it.
All the questions. So
I love it.
Thanks for that. And thanks for the interaction as always. And again, we had the question come up in the mailbag about the big announcement. We hope that it's we hope Vince and I are both going on vacation. I'll be here tomorrow. We'll have the We In, We Out show tomorrow. And then after that, Vince and I will both be off through the middle of next week. And hopefully by the time we get back late next week, we will be able to finally make that announcement. Fingers crossed. We shall see. Hit the like button before you leave. Appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.